So, Sharp Ends by Joe Abercrombie. This is the first book that I've completed in 2023, and it's not a book that I will be recommending. I am giving it 2 out of 5 stars, and here's why. So, this is supposed to be a collection of short stories set in the world of the First Law. Now, I have read the First Law original trilogy, and I loved it. I thought it was unique, fresh. People say that it's grimdark. I disagree. I think it's very upbeat and light in terms of tone, even though it can be gruesome and grimy, but I don't necessarily think of it as a grim, dark experience, you know? But anyway, I really like the original trilogy. Since reading the original trilogy, I have read some of the standalones in the First Law universe. I read Best Served Cold, which I thought was a pretty unnecessary book, but it wasn't horrible. It should have been a lot shorter than it was. And then I read Red Country, which I didn't like. It was actually in my worst books of the year video. But the First Law original trilogy was very high on my top 10 books of the year list. So, you know, the good and the bad, you know. Joe Abercrombie is one of those authors for me where you just want to see how you feel about the next book. Now, with Sharp Ends, this is a weird book. First of all, I don't think this book actually is a short story collection. It doesn't feel like it. It feels more like a compendium of supplemental background information or just supplemental stories regarding and focusing on some of the characters that we have seen previously and some places that we have seen previously, and even some events that we have seen in the First Law or that people have talked about. For example, there's the first story in here, which is actually one of the better ones, is about Glokta, the best character that Joe Abercrombie has written so far, and it's kind of the origin of his deformity and how he became this like crippled monster that we see in the original trilogy. We get to see sort of the origins of that. So some of the stories have potential in that way. However, it never felt like a short story to me, like a short story collection to me, because I feel like in a good short story collection, the stories should be able to stand on their own and have value by themselves, like complete valuable entities. And I didn't feel that here. I felt this was a very irregular collection of information, and there was only a couple of stories here that I really enjoyed. Now, before I wrap this up, I will say that there is a lot of good to be found in this book. I think Joe Abercrombie is a great stylist. I think he is very good with dialogue. I really, really, really love the dialogue, the humor, the wit. It has this kind of zippy energy to it. It's very clever, very fast-paced. It was very funny sometimes. But I just wish that sort of took center stage, like that was more used by Abercrombie, this kind of witty, fast, zippy dialogue. Also, the character work can be good sometimes, not all the times. So I just wish I can see more of those things in the next trilogy that I will be reading by Joe Abercrombie, which is The Age of Madness. I will be reading The Age of Madness probably January, February, March. And I really, really hope that Joe Abercrombie has evolved as a writer since writing this, because this was just a very kind of book. I didn't hate it, but it was very, very frustrating because I know that Joe Abercrombie can be a great author. It was just very, very lackluster in here. So I wouldn't recommend reading this book. I wouldn't recommend reading any of the standalones either, but that's just my opinion. Some people say that you have to read them. You have to read all of the standalones and every single thing that Joe Abercrombie has ever written before you get to The Age of Madness. I don't know, I haven't read it, but I will read The Age of Madness very soon now, and I'm excited. So thanks for watching. That is my 2-star review of Sharp Ends, a short story collection, not really, by Joe Abercrombie.